Welcome to the Earth Feels podcast.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Christine.
Welcome to Earth Feels, the podcast for people feeling overwhelmed by the endlessly gloomy climate news.
Where every week we have soul-based conversations about climate change and explore the idea that climate change may be happening for us as much as it is happening to us.
If you are ready to shift your focus and secure the future for our kids and our grandkids, then this is the podcast for you.
And yes, we do know how to spell.
Hey, Rose here. It's March 2021. And here in the US, that means we celebrate Women's History Month. And while I appreciate that the US Congress back in 1987 declared March to be set aside to honor women's accomplishments, I can't help but reflect that 49.6% of the world's population is given 1 month to highlight their achievements throughout the millennia. So while this March I am celebrating the iconic presence of women from Rosa Parks and Harriet Tubman to Kamala Harris and AOC, I'm hyper aware that our society continues to reward the very masculine traits of doing, accomplishment, competition, acquisition, and hierarchy. Certainly the patriarchal model devised by white, dare I say heterosexual men to benefit white, heterosexual men was designed to have dominion over women, people of color, people of different sexual persuasion, and really all other sentient beings. The fear, the greed, and the oppression that are intrinsic to patriarchal cultures across the planet has had devastating results for Mother Earth and all her sentient beings. So for this episode, I wanted to tap into the divine feminine aspects of humanity that all of us, men and women, embody. These aspects of humanity that have long been undervalued and ignored. Mainly that state of being with intuition, creativity, compassion, nurturing, empathy, love, understanding, and collaboration being front and center. These exact qualities that our patriarchal model has regarded as sentimental or ineffectual, and perhaps even weak, are the exact energies, the exact qualities that seek balance and peace. The exact qualities that by transcending our fear-based programming, the programming that fosters division and aggression, create unity. They are the very necessary yin to our current yang. So for today's episode, I posed the question, what is the role of the collective feminine in planetary healing, to 14 cohorts working in the field of feminine energy? Their hopeful, heartfelt responses begin now. And first up is a poem by Josie Dillon.
Hello, I am Josefa Beltran Dillon. I am an intuitive healer. I want to share with you a poem I wrote specifically for this podcast, The Sacred Feminine. We are living in a time when the sacred feminine consciousness is awakening. These times have awakened us into action. The sacred feminine within you is stirring, waiting for you to acknowledge your voice. She will guide you toward your power. She will guide you toward your knowledge. She will bring you the wisdom that lies within your very soul. The voices of your ancestors will speak to you. Remember the voice of your grandmother. Remember the wisdom of your life. Let her voice show you the movements of nature. She will make you whole. She will allow you to change the landscape of our world. She will give you the medicine needed to heal our earth. She will give you the courage to guide others. You, the feminine, hold the wisdom of the ages. You, dearest feminine, you hold the knowledge to raise our young ones in wisdom. You hold the medicine to heal all those ailing souls that walk this earth. Share your ancient wisdom, as this humanity, this world, needs your thoughts and your voice. Awaken your sacred consciousness. This is our challenge. Awaken your sacred consciousness. This is our duty. Awaken your sacred feminine consciousness.
Next, we have Chris Stein, the founder of Women of Wisdom Conference, now in its 23rd year. Chris is a radio talk show host at Voices of Women on Transformational Talk Radio and publisher at Wise Women Publishing.
As women share their stories, it brings about the feminine consciousness into the collective to impact everyone. Our stories are important to share as we heal when we share our stories, and we also heal when we witness stories from other women. Stories expand our heart and bring the feeling tone to the collective human experience. Our earth is listening and responding to us. We see this in every story we hear of environmental damage due to climate change, animals going extinct, hurricanes, volcanoes. It's the earth responding because it is alive. We need to listen to her to know what is needed for planetary healing. So what is ours to do? What are our gifts? As we explore our own stories, we discover our gifts that we are here to share for the evolution of humanity and our planet. What story do you need to share today? We don't know how a story will impact anyone. If a story comes to mind, your story needs to be shared as someone is waiting to hear it. They're telling you, speak it. When I follow that voice and speak up, invariably someone will tell me, I'm so glad you shared that. I feel that way too. Or I've had that experience also, and now I can share my story, which brings about healing for them. If my story impacts one person, it has done its job. Another reason for you to share your story, it's vital for women to be visible. As voices of women are heard, we'll be a collective of women's voices working towards the healing of our planet. Our voices together will create the collective feminine for planetary healing.
Now, Sandy Hart. Sandy is the founding president of SARA, Spiritual and Religious Alliance for Hope, a women's organization. Sandy is a self-described disruptor of systems that do not work. Gotta love that. And her motto is, when we play together, we trust one another. When we trust one another, we can be wildly creative. And when we are wildly creative, we can move mountains with regenerative and resilient results.
Imagine if collectively we all had the courage to step beyond the boundaries of our own comfort zone, to tug at the root system of patriarchy, and then face our own shadow that keeps us bound in a system that does not serve us or the environment we depend on for our survival. And what if we met that challenge to accept our own personal responsibility and our agency with wild creativity? Imagine how we can stretch the edges of what is possible for the next 7 generations. They'll tell a different story, one where everyone is cared for and sacred economy is the normative idea, where no decisions are made that do not serve the whole, and the divine masculine and the divine feminine dance in their sensuality, and where their love is sacralized in balance. Then we may remember who we are in relationship to the natural world around us and see everything and everyone as part of the ecosystem of life. Then we can begin to reconstruct a system of domination and patriarchy, replacing it with a system of partnership that brings balance and harmony for a world that works for everyone.
A world that works for everyone. Wouldn't that be lovely? Thanks, Sandy.
Next, we have Karina Luna, founder of The Archaeology for the Woman's Soul and the author of a book by the same name, The Archaeology of the Woman's Soul. Karina's work is pinned to the top of my Facebook page each morning. Her missives never fail to touch my heart. Not a bad way to start the day. For all of these women, I'll include links so that you can find out more about any specific one or maybe all that touch your heart. Here's Karina.
Hello, I'm Karina Luna, author of Archaeology for the Woman's Soul, soulmaker, wordsmith, guide to soul-deep women who are called to stand in their truth with courage and conviction. The collective feminine can make a difference, but only if each and every one of us understands the depth of our social, ecological, and spiritual challenges from a multidimensional approach. offering our own mastery and teaching that can mend the soul of the world. But to heal the wounds of the world, we must first tend to our own soul injuries. After we do that, we need to become socially aware, culturally literate, and kind in the heart. We need to understand history, and we must bring back poetry in our lives. This is a must. We must think about the metaphors we live by and relanguage the way we describe human suffering. Poetically speaking, we must do our own soul work. We must learn to make soul our own soul. And only as we make our own soul in a conscious way, paying attention to our values and our own contribution, only then we are true participants in planetary healing as individuals and collectively.
Next up, Shannon Thompson. Shannon is a self-described birth mama, vision keeper, and wild card at Shakti Rising. She's the founder of Shakti Rising, a social change organization for women in recovery, be it from addiction, abuse, depression, or other self-destructive behaviors. Since its inception, Shakti Rising has supported, mentored, and fostered thousands of women and girls and women's organizations.
Women carry within us the DNA, an innate remembering, a knowing of Earth's ways, the wildest inside of all of us. I think the key is in this phrase, collective feminine. We've known it all along that it's collaborative, co-creative, this dance we do with nature, the Shakti energy that rises within. But it's a practice and a commitment. The current trance is to do it alone. Find your thing, your project, your pet voice or thing, creation, way of being in the world, when in fact what nature reflects back to us is the great beauty of our thing, ecology, ecosystems, all the landmass, water, flora, and fauna teach us that there is a power and a beauty in creating to the whole, that the collective draws forth the most profound brilliance of our individual sovereign self, and that by bringing that gift of our individuality, we make the collective more profound. So the way forward is we for she.
Next up, the Reverend Audrey Addison Williams, Chief Visionary Officer at Healing Soul of America.
Greetings from Naples, Florida. I'm Reverend Audrey Addison Williams. I am coming to understand more fully the call for women to rise and to lead. This call requires that we move through and beyond our gender identity. It requires us to transcend all limited beliefs about ourselves, to transcend racial identity, cultural and ethnic identity, and to show up fully as spirit, asking and allowing all that we are as essence to be used by the divine in service to all humanity rising. We have made a mistake, I believe, in focusing solely on gender, women as gender identity. What is missing in the world today is the feminine energy, the feminine principle, which is a spirit of allowing, which is the spirit and the wisdom that we need to design the new systems and the new structures of this world. This cannot be achieved through ego identity. It cannot be achieved simply in a female body. It must be achieved through the spirit.
Now we have Katheryn Fox Redmond. Kathleen is an integrative life coach, an energy medicine practitioner, specializing in women and girls' personal and collective growth, healing, and empowerment. And I'm privileged to say that Kathleen is part of my spiritual tribe.
In my perspective, the role of the collective feminine in planetary healing at this time is to awaken our hearts deeper than ever before, and from a heart-centered consciousness to join together, committed to transformation and change. The planet needs to be healed of toxins and pollutants, but it also needs healing from the toxic thought and polluting energy that we, as citizens of this planet allowed to harm ourselves, one another, and the environment. And this change needs to start within, as we are familiar with the notion of as within, so without. As we reflect upon our carbon footprint, we also need to reflect upon our energy footprint as beings of energy. As long as we perceive ourselves as separate from one another, we will feel separate from the earth. As long as we continue to feed our outdated, limiting, disempowering beliefs and fears that say we are not enough, that any one of us is better than another because of race, ethnicity, gender identity, or sexual orientation, the planet will be lacking. It is time for sacred honoring. As we wish for the planet to be honored, so we must begin by truly and deeply honoring ourselves. Truly and deeply loving ourselves, seeing ourselves as sacred, worthy beings, and doing whatever work and healing we need to do in order for our hearts to open wide.
Melissa Wadsworth is an artist and the author of Collective Manifestation.
It is the balance of masculine and feminine energies that is a key to the healing of our planet. This balance in consciousness must first be present within us as individuals, for the personal is the collective. Up to this point in our dominant masculine cultures, manifestation has been generally expressed as doing and earth extraction. What can I take, acquire, and achieve? Such one-sided social conditioning means we access only half of our true creative potential, and this has caused imbalance within ourselves and on the planet. Fortunately, consciousness is evolving. We are recognizing that within a healthy cycle of creation, we must first embrace the being part of manifestation. This is where the dream lives and comes into expansion, and it is through feminine energies like inspiration, intention, intuition, imagination, connection, communication, inclusion, and patience that we set the foundations for the dream. Then we call upon the masculine energies of discernment, choice, enthusiasm, planning, perseverance, innovative application, leadership, and strength of will to be in service to our dreams for self, community, and the earth.
Next up is Christine Panapoli. You'll recognize Christine as my cohort here at Earth Feels podcast, until she recently took a break to work on her other business, which is raising human consciousness through healing the wounds that we carry in our DNA.
Yes, indeed. We are living in a time where we are on the verge of destroying ourselves and our environment. So what is the role of the collective feminine in that? I would say it is calling us all, even in the midst of what appears to be unmitigated disaster, to still embrace the mystery of life, to embrace the sacredness of life. One of the ways of doing that I think we're all being called to do is to listen to what your soul and your inner voice is calling and asking you to do today. One of my favorite lines from the movie Shakespeare in Love is when Geoffrey Rush's character says, "The natural condition is insurmountable obstacles on the road to imminent disaster." And then another character asks him, "What happens?" And he says, "Strangely enough, it all turns out well. And how? I don't know. It's a mystery." Now, we can't know that it's all going to turn out well, but I think that it's a timely reminder. We don't know what's going to happen. It's a mystery, and let's live in that mystery and that sacredness every day.
Now we'll hear from Nancy Mills, artist and founder of The Spirited Woman, a women's empowerment community offering daily inspirations and monthly calls.
The role of the collective feminine in planetary healing is huge. When women come together, they can do anything, whether it has to do with the planet, whether it has to do with the economy, whether it has to do with love, whether it has to do with politics. Women have been placed on this earth as a defining force of love, compassion, healing, significance, nurturing. Women are here because they know what it means to embrace. They know what it means to embrace people and goodness. What our planet needs more than anything at this point in time is healing. It needs embrace. It needs love. It needs growth. It needs a collective energy of the strong coming together to make a difference, to make a change, and to ensure that our children survive throughout destiny.
Karen Lee Moon from Huntsville, Alabama, is the creatrix of the Divine Feminine app, Finding a Sacred Circle. If you're looking for women to sit and tell stories with, to sit and heal with, if you've never done a women's circle, you're in for a treat. And Karen has created the world's largest listing of women's circles and events. That shows you what dedication she has to divine feminine energy.
Women are weavers. For too long we've been separated by endless, lonely suburbs, empty kitchens, by careers where we put our kids in daycare and compete, clawing our way to the top, thinking there is some view there that will complete us. But realizing in the end there is no view when you're stepping on someone else to get there. Today we're taking back our feminine strength. We're defining that word, stepping into our power, sitting in circles with each other, lifting each other up, realizing that the only way to heal the world is to come together, recognizing each other's strengths, providing support for weaknesses, as any good mother does. We're finally helping to bring to the table differences. That's what makes beauty. Weavers. When you turn over the quilt, you see all those individual strands. When you look at it from the top, you see the beautiful pattern.
Next up, Mayor Cromwell.
Mary is a Gaia mystic and priestess, a healer, and the author of the Great Mother Bible and Message from Mother, Earth Mother.
The role of the collective feminine at this time on our sacred earth is to heal ourselves. We women have been through so much for thousands of years that we need to collectively and individually support each other in healing our shadow selves, healing our victimhood, healing our inner wounded child, healing our past lives of times of persecution and martyrhood, et cetera, things that have happened to so many women. And from that place, we then are better capable of creating and holding healing space for the wounded masculine, the darker part of the patriarchal system, to bring our sacred earth back into balance, at least within the human realms. But on top of all that, we are being called as a collective feminine to remember our relationship with the mother, the great mother. Our planetary caretaker is a great mother, and she is our foremost mother. And when we learn to heal ourselves, we're actually healing her. And beyond that, the collective feminine can grow more gardens, get our hands in the soil, remember our sacredness, honor the sacredness of all that is around us. And from that place, we can birth this new earth that is so beautiful and so amazing that's already coming in right now.
Next up, lucky number 13, is Claire Dubois, the founder and CEO of Tree Sisters, whose primary mission is to rapidly accelerate tropical reforestation by employing women in the tropics to plant trees. Tree Sisters is one of my monthly gives. If you haven't yet heard Claire's story of how Tree Sisters came into being, please go to the Earth Feels podcast webpage for this episode, where I will include a link. I promise you will be amazed.
When I was given Tree Sisters, which was given to me in a car crash when a tree stopped me going over an edge, having swerved on ice, I heard many things, among them. You have to reforest the tropics within 10 years. You have to mobilize the women. The women are the missing piece. The women are the womb carriers, and Earth is womb. Women and nature share a common history. What's been done to one has been done to the other. Feminine consciousness is the consciousness of seasons, of life cycles, of health, of balance. And then it went on to tell me what Tree Sisters was, and it ended with, women have to remember who and what they really are. Feminine consciousness has to be reinstated, or it's over. That has been the root of my life's work now for the last God knows how long, and I think I can safely say the message seemed to be, if women do not rise, there will not be a future. If women do not rise, there will not be a second chance for humanity to understand what we are actually capable of. Feminine consciousness is the consciousness of nature. Nature is the ruler of women's bodies. We literally have cosmic bodies. If we're willing to allow the cosmos to have its way with us and nature to have its way with us, we can unite and bring through a completely different consciousness and a different future. As the ancient Tibetan myth states, when 1,000 goddesses gather, the divine feminine will rebirth through their combined energies, and the frequency on the planet will shift from one of fear to one of love.
Next up, Marilyn Nyberg. Marilyn was the co-founder of the platform Gather the Women Global Matrix back in 2002, and recently authored A Woman's Guide to Sacred Activism. How do we move forward? Welcome, Marilyn.
I think, first of all, we must begin to unify in our own sisterhood, connecting with one another and sharing our processes. Secondly, we need to be going about the world from a feminine inner movement, which connects us to nature, to the earth, to protecting her, to speaking up, speaking out, and going beyond the usual restrictions of women's voices. We must speak together and bring women together to make the changes necessary. And we can't model ourselves after the male approach to everything. The way in which we treat the earth is the way we treat women. Until that changes, until women are treated with respect, the earth will continue to suffer.
And last but not least, Pat Farrow. Pat was gifted to me a number of years ago when I was beginning my soul journey, and she has graciously connected me with her wide tribe of women who are working to create a new paradigm. She's written some amazing books, Sacred Marching Orders, What Happens When Women Wake Up. I'm privileged to call Pat my friend.
Climate crisis is clearly the most dangerous reality for humanity and all life. If Mother Earth shakes us off like fleas on a dog, it might be that she and the animals and plant life will survive and flourish. We have seen that with Chernobyl, which has become a wildlife refuge, even though many of the effects of radiation continue to be present. What comes to mind most strongly is the power of Mother Bear fierceness. Any woman, whether she has had children or not, can describe a time when she has felt and acted from Mother Bear fierceness. I believe the collective feminine is an energetic vortex in which women can act as a unified force that can carry the power of Mother Bear fierceness. This is an energy that is difficult to describe in words, but it is an embodied power and authority that all women can access, given the need to protect her young. If we, as the collective feminine, called on the strength of Mother Bear fierceness on behalf of Mother Earth and all life, the climate crisis would be addressed and resolved with the sovereignty and urgency that is required at this 11th hour. I believe this is possible and is already a growing movement. Our greatest threat is the denial, avoidance, and lack of action to protect our beloved Mother Earth.
So there you have it. 15 voices collectively representing hundreds of years of women's empowerment work, all addressing the necessity of bringing heart-centered, compassionate, collaborative energy into the forefront on our planet at this time in order to heal Mother Earth. It's my sincere hope that one or more of these voices touched your heart deeply enough to leave you curious about the role that you are to play in the healing of our planet. I'd like to share a decades-old memory that I have with you. It's one of those memories you have that you remember your exact surroundings. My eldest son, who's now 30, was a toddler at the time, and he was sitting in the back seat in his car seat, quiet for once. I'm in the passenger seat, and we're coming home from a weekend camping trip in the Cascade Mountains. in Washington State. And weirdly, I can even remember the exit number, exit 32. We were passing through North Bend. And I was reading Marianne Williamson's book, her latest book at the time, A Woman's Worth. And there was this one passage that hit me so hard, I started sobbing. And of course, my husband at the time didn't know what to make of it. That's just one of those moments that I've never forgotten. And it occurs to me that it's meant to be read right now. So let me see if I can find it. This is it. In every advanced mammalian species that survives and thrives, a common anthropological characteristic is the fierce behavior of the adult female of the species when she senses a threat to her cubs. The lioness, the tigress, and the mama bear are all examples. Kind of goes to what Pat was talking about, the mama bear fierceness. The world is meant to be a safe and nurturing environment for our children. The fact that it isn't is a sacred call to action for every conscious woman. The mother of any species is loving and tender toward her young, but fiercely protective whenever they are threatened. What has happened to the female of our species? Again, that memory is from 30 years ago. I don't know why it stuck in my craw. Maybe it was a precursor to this moment right now. But the climate crisis is real. Humanity is responsible. The world is in need of all of our gifts. The world is in need of your gifts. The only question now is, will you step in? Thanks for listening. Catch you next time. Bye-bye. That's this week's episode of Earth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use Song for the Ocean. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me.